Hey everybody, Bob Chick back with David Baye. We're here with the last rep once again, seeing what's up in the bodybuilding world. David, I am fresh off a flight from Phoenix at the Europa Games, of course, and on a flight again tonight to Brazil. So no rest for the weary, my friend.
Yeah, big expo down in Brazil this weekend. We had talked about it a little bit. Bodybuilding fans down there are crazy, so it's always cool to see the expos and stuff like that, even if there's not a show attached, because it gives the fans the opportunities to, to meet some of the people that they've looked up to in the industry and stuff like that. So some of these big expos, every time we think about an expo, we think about the ones that are tied to like the Arnold or the Olympia, but some of the big FIBOs, the LA Fit Expos, and other people who run the LA Fit have gone to Chicago and down in Texas and out east and stuff. So these expos they're cool for the fans, and like I said, even if you run them independently of an actual contest, they're something for the fans to go and definitely enjoy their weekend.
Well, let me tell you what we got going here on behalf of my boys from Black Skull Nutrition, Black Skull USA. They're one of the main sponsors of this event. It's called the Expo Nutrition. It's a huge expo, much what people would liken here to the Arnold or the Olympia Expo, probably a little bit bigger. But we've got some IFBB superstars, past and present, that are going to be there. We got Samir Bannout, Flex Wheeler, Shawn Ray, myself, and Sugar Shawn Ray all coming down. So this should be a pretty good. MD well represented actually. So got a few of us there. So
yeah. The fans down in Brazil, I haven't been to Brazil, but I've been to the shows in Mexico and over in Europe. I'm assuming just with the cultures from what I've seen so far that the fans down in Brazil are probably every bit as crazy as the fans everywhere else. Is that kind of the case? Or?
Yeah, they love bodybuilding, and Branch will be huge there. They love that hardcore style, which is Branch all day long. So that's one of the reasons why we got Branch coming in. But they embrace the superstars as well, like the history. So that's why I thought a Samir Bannout might be a nice addition. He's actually going to bring the Sandow award. He's going to bring the statue to display, which is pretty cool. So,
here's my question about expos in Brazil, and it was funny. I was just talking to somebody about this the other night. Well, when I went to FIBO, it's like, I've been to the Arnold Expo, the Olympia Expo, the Arnold Europe Expo, and they're all kind of similar as far as the setup and stuff. I said when I was in FIBO, if you were a men's physique competitor or a 20-year-old kid, you didn't wear a shirt at the expo. And it's like I was walking around the FIBO Expo, and it was so weird because it was a great expo, a great event. A ton of the superstars there, and you had all these just young dudes just in groups. So there'd be a group of like 10, 15 young guys walking around like carrying their water jugs and their t-shirts and no shirt on. And I'm like, what is going on here? So, is that something back in Brazil?
I have never seen that.
Pictures.
I've never seen that in Brazil.
I want to see a picture of Bob with like 15 20-year-old men's physique competitors shirts off.
Yeah, things that won't be happening. I've never seen that. It's in Sao Paulo, which is a very beautiful town and city and all that. And I have never seen that personally, David, but I tell you what, if I do see it, I will absolutely get a picture of Sugar Shawn Ray standing with these guys, giving the thumbs up. And if anybody, of course, has any New Balance sneaks on, I'll be sure to get that for you, too. So we'll see, but it's going to be a huge event. So we'll definitely get some word back into the MD forums for the fans. They can check some of that out. Phoenix Europa was the main show this past week. Ed and Betty Parisa, along with Scott Templeton, Eric Hillman, and the crew from Europa, obviously putting that one together once again. Our 5th year in Phoenix. It's hard to believe it's been 5 years already. But the 212 was headlining this one, and the Tank Charles Dixon taking it all over Guy's sister Nino. Good competition.
Yeah, that was your 1 and 2 last year, and Dixon won again last year, and it was close. And it's really, with Guy and Charles, it really comes down to a pose for pose comparison. Guy's a little bit better in his back shots from a conditioning standpoint than Charles, but in their front and their side shots, I think Charles gets an advantage over Guy. So it was a close battle. Surprising a little bit to see your Arnold Classic winner, Hidetada, slip to 3rd place. But, I don't think he was necessarily at his best. So, And we had talked about that, in our show last week previewing it. Like some of these guys after the Olympia, they decide to jump in a show, but it's another month of dieting after having done the Olympia. So
Sure.
Hidetada was, like I said, not at his best. I think had he been at his best, he could have won. As we had talked about, and as I had so cleverly predicted, but it's not that great of a prediction. John Jewett in the top 5 and a first call-out guy. So I thought he compared really well to the rest of those guys. From the pictures that I saw, he didn't look like, okay, here's a rookie who just won his pro card that's out of place. I mean, he looked like, a legitimate contender. And that says a lot. We talk so much, and it's talked about so much on the boards, like how in the 90s, when you turned pro, you were ready to compete as a pro. And we seem to have gotten away from that. Like you get guys turning pro, they want to take a year off or 2 years off or whatever to try to get ready for the IFBB. And so it's nice to see somebody turn pro and jump right into a show and not only do the show, but to place very well. So it was an impressive finish for John. And he's a guy that I think you could very well see him on an Olympia stage next year in the 212 division, because I think there's going to be a show that he can definitely win. And if that's not the case, and he decides to do a handful of shows, I don't see him placing out of the top 5 at most of these shows. So points wise, I think he can get there. So to go from a middleweight contender at the USA's in 2015 to potentially being on the Olympia stage in 2017, that says a lot about John's offseason work ethic and the work that he's put in. So bright young star.
John Jewett was a tremendous talent. You can see he's good, new talent that's come up, one of the good young guys. My biggest critique on John was at the prejudging. He was very sloppy in the midsection in his posing, and it was a noticeable detractment. It actually kept him down probably more than he should have been. But just to show everybody what an attention to detail does, obviously somebody got to him in between. At the finals following day, it was 100 degrees difference, 100% improvement over the day before, purely from him paying attention to it and focusing. He actually did even a couple of shots in a vacuum style. So clearly it's something that you can control if your mind is on it. But it hurt him at the prejudging. Still did well, still a great physique. Yep. Something he's got to look for in the future, and he has to be cognizant that at all times you can see that. And when you just let it go, man, it's like a bellows, and it's just out there, not just for him, but for anybody. Let me tell you, Babak Akbarnia from Iran. Now, this was the guy, Dennis James was working with him. He actually qualified for the 212 Olympia. Never made the show because he was getting the runaround from his country on getting the proper paperwork and visas and all that stuff. They ended up sending him the paperwork like a day before the Olympia or something, like ridiculous. So he actually never made the show, even though he won the amateur, I think one of the amateur Olympia competitions. Great new talent, but he's gone from 176 to like 196. He's put on almost 20 pounds. Still looked phenomenal. Great conditioning. Ended up in the top 5. But he's still got about 12 pounds to go into the class. And let me tell you something. I'd have had no problem having him a spot higher. I had him actually over Hidetada because Hidetada was soft from the back, especially. Clearly not at his best. This guy's given up some muscle. He's not the biggest guy out there, but man, he's put together, David. Beautiful physique. I would have had no problem with him being ahead of Hide in this show.
No, I could have seen that as well, and it just goes to show like this 212 division, and it's not like it's just coming on. We've seen over the course of the last couple of years, like the 212 keeps getting better and better and more competitive, and the trend is continuing forward. And it was it wasn't that long ago. If you've been a bodybuilding fan for a long time, where turning pro as a middleweight or even a light heavyweight. You probably didn't have much of a future in the IFBB unless you were, a freak like Dexter Jackson or somebody like that. So just to see, the prevalence of the 212 class and how good, there's your boy Shawn calling me right now.
Hey, tell him we're busy. Oh. Hey, answer it. Tell him we're doing a show.
All right, hang on a second. Shawn Ray, you are live with Bob Cicherillo and myself on the last rep. We're shooting it right now. I got you on speakerphone, so don't say anything stupid.
Beautiful. I typically don't.
That's Shawn, we're just talking about heading down to Brazil for that big expo, and Bob says he's going to get a picture of you with all your men's physique fans.
Well, that'll work. Men's physique in Brazil is very popular. I'm popular with the men's physique guys. I think it's because I have a men's physique now, so it's all good.
Is that what that is?
All right. Well, Shawn, Bob wants to know if that's what you call your physique, is a men's physique.
No, but I think I'm closer to men's physique than I am a men's pro bodybuilding physique these days.
So no comeback?
No comeback from me, but there's a lot of rumbles out there. I heard Flex Wheeler may be on the comeback trail.
Oh, boy.
You hear that?
Now, ask him a question for me, because I don't think he can hear me directly, but if Flex Wheeler comes back, him and Levrone square off, who wins?
Levrone wins because Levrone's got time under his belt. Flex loses because he winds up in the hospital. I mean, the guy has a myriad of health problems. He's on a borrowed kidney. His back and arms are tattooed from here to eternity.
True.
It's just a hot mess. He's had a lot of surgeries.
Jesus.
Now, as long as we got Shawn on here for a special guest spot, I'd be remiss, David, if I didn't ask him. Shawn, you saw the guest posing pics from Kevin that we've seen post-Olympia. Have you given any thought to reassessing your position or anything else that you said prior to seeing Kevin before the Olympia?
Well, those pictures confirmed to me that he's officially retired as a professional threat or competitor on an IFBB pro stage. Now, that being said, I'm putting him in the category of a Robbie Robinson, Albert Beckles, Tony Pearson, and even a Vince Taylor. I mean, the guy still has the ability with his physique to go out there, to pose, to have people look at him in reflection and reminisce about a physique that once was. Now, that being said, stepping on an IFBB pro stage, one, it's not worthy of ever qualifying for a future Mr. Olympia competition, whether he puts in another 8 months or another year or another 2 years. The legs are gone, along with the back. Number two, for a 52-year-old man, what he's done in the past 12 months is remarkable and amazing. I don't think we're going to see it anytime soon. But as it stands in terms of trying to be a professional champion or a Mr. Olympia competitor, Kevin will never see the Mr. Olympia stage unless they give him an IFBB invitation like they did this year. And I doubt that he'll ever see another IFBB Pro Championship victory based on what I've seen and based on where he's at. Now, that's my professional opinion. I've been wrong before, but my track record right now stands that I'm batting 1,000 as it relates to Kevin Levrone being any type of a threat to be a champion. He is a people's champion. We long to see these types of returns. But I can tell you right now that Tony Pearson and Robbie Robinson at 60 and 70 years old would look comparable next to Kevin Levrone on a guest posing tour. And if I was Kevin, I'd be talking to some of those guys and maybe rally the troops and go on a little guest posing tour. I'd love to see Robbie Robinson, Tony Pearson, Kevin Levrone, Flex Wheeler, and even Samir would probably get fired up to go on some type of a tour, but not an IFBB Pro Tour.
Shawn, I'm sensing a Bodybuilding Expendables 5 coming out with all these guys, coming back to the stage. All right, Shawn, last question before we let you go, because I know you got to get to Brazil as well as I do. Is Kevin doing more harm than good to his legacy if he continues or wants to compete in 2017?
Well, let's be honest. The word legacy and bodybuilding, they're not synonymous. We've seen bodybuilders like Ronnie Coleman, like Samir Banu, and some others out there hang around as in bodybuilding, or as in boxing, like Muhammad Ali, for one punch too many, along with Mike Tyson. And we've seen some great champions stay longer than they should have, but yet get a second wind and parlay that into other things. I think Flex Wheeler talking about coming back, it's talk. It sounds great. People will probably cling to that, but not to the degree that we did with Kevin. Kevin's legacy is already done on the competition side. What Kevin is doing is fulfilling unfinished business. The guy wants to be on a stage. The guy loves to hear the roar of the crowd. He wants people talking about him. He likes to meet and greet the fans. He's in the supplement industry. So what he's doing is great for his business. And it's also great for reliving the dream. He's got a second bite at the apple. Some promoters want to pay him maybe to get on a guest posing stage, but on an IFBB stage, again, it becomes a very lonely, isolated existence where I think we as professionals, critics, writers, journalists will look at that not with nostalgic of what was, but what is. I think we will shake our heads, we'll scratch our heads, we will feel sympathetic to him not getting the call-outs that he thinks he's worthy of. But guys like this have got to go through it, Bob. We can't talk him off the stage. The pictures don't lie. He sees something that we don't see in the mirror and in the pictures. But what he does see is fulfilling his reason to get out of bed. Look, I'm not going to stop the guy from getting out of bed and getting on a stage. As long as there's a stage and a promoter wants Kevin up there, I'm sure, like Ronnie Coleman, Kevin will do that. Ronnie Coleman was guest posing right there in Miami, Bob. You were at the mic at the World's Masters Olympia, and completely tear the T-shirt off, and he was standing on toothpicks in a shadow of what he was as an 8-time Mr. Olympia. We shook our heads, but Ronnie had the time of his life, and I think Kevin right now is living a second dream. Let's let him enjoy it, and I'm not going to continue to be critical of him, although I call it like I see it, and right now that ship has sailed. So let's not talk about Kevin as a professional threat, but let's let Kevin try to enjoy the guest posting circuit if that's where he goes. Now, if he gets on the stage, he's going to get the criticism. We can't avoid talking about the contest that we professionally do. Our professional opinions count, which is why we have this medium. But I think for Kevin, at some point, barring an injury, will continue on the path that he's on, continue to believe what he believes, and let's just sit back and watch it happen.
Well, certainly, Shawn, not short on opinion, and you can't tell come off the stage, buddy, or the ledge. We both know that. So, Shawn, we'll let you get the pack, and I will see you, my friend, tomorrow morning, actually, as it's going to be in Brazil. So we'll catch up with you. Shawn, thanks for stopping by, buddy.
Absolutely. We'll have Branch Warren, Flex Wheeler, Samir Banu, yourself, and myself out there. We're looking for a elite pre-sighting at the Black Skull booth.
Oh, boy.
We'll have in-depth, detailed reporting from that expo.
Well, you can interview him yourself or report with him, but we'll go from there. But that's going to be an interesting deal, man. We'll see you tomorrow, Shawn.
Cheers. Take care.
All right, David. Special viewer call-ins.
He didn't pull any punches, did he? Wow.
No.
Jeez.
Listen,
that's Shawn for you. So
well, listen, I don't expect anything less from Shawn. I mean, that's exactly what he should do. He should give his opinion, his expertise. Is he wrong? No, and I think actually a lot of the guys in the forums are giving him actually some accolades for being correct in his assessments of this. But is he right or is he wrong? I mean, here's the bottom line, David. I mean, as going out and guest posing and making appearances and all that stuff for his brand, I couldn't agree more with Shawn. I think it's absolutely a good idea. I think it brings him out into the current climate of people and fans and new base and endearing the old base to what he's doing. I would stop short of that, though. I would not compete again on an IFBB stage. I would not try to requalify for the Olympia. I think that's bad for the image. I think it's bad for the branding. So I think there's a fork in the road here that Kevin should be smart enough to take the right side. Again, don't take that left, man, because Shawn's right about one thing. That's going to be a tougher road to hoe.
The thing with Kevin is he is a legend, and he does have a legacy, and his comeback doesn't tarnish that at all. But he can be incredibly popular and always will be, and he can hit the Expo circuit and be at all the shows, whether it be on behalf of his supplement company or just him showing up on behalf of a promoter to give the fans a reason to show up. So Kevin's got a long, long shelf life in the IFBB. I think pretty much as long as he's walking around on 2 feet, he's going to be a popular guy. And we see that with Jay Cutler. I think Jay is probably more popular now than he was when he was actually competing, and I've had this discussion with people. It's like when Jay was competing, you had all the years that you had your Ronnie fans or whatever fans, and Jay Cutler, the refrigerator, and then when he won the Olympia, people loved it, and then he lost, and then he came back in 2009 and just lit everybody up. But you had people who were Cutler fans and weren't Cutler fans, and so obviously his popularity was incredibly high being a Mr. Olympia. But now that he's retired, it's like everybody just loves Jay. The people who watched him compete, the young guys who see the stuff that he's still doing and how he's still out there. So Kevin's got, as far as staying in the limelight and still being very relevant in the bodybuilding industry, I guess that's my main point, is that Kevin is always going to be relevant. He can stay relevant. Like Shawn said, if he stays in good shape and looks good, he's always going to get that respect from the fans. But maybe competing, but isn't the best idea for him. But again, and we said this in the last show, and Shawn brought up a good point. Like, if that's what you want to do, at the end of the day, then that's what you got to do. You know, I mean, if he thinks he's going to be walking out and winning some of these pro shows, you know, he's going to have a very hard time. But if Kevin's competing because Kevin wants to go in the gym and he wants to grind on the weights and he wants to put himself through the rigors of the diet and challenge himself and he wants to compete, then, you know, go nuts, go for it.
Well, I mean, that's a given. I mean, obviously anybody can do what they want. However, at some point, all that nostalgia goes out the window. At some point, you become another competitor, and yeah, you're going to have to requalify. I don't think there's anything good about that. I mean, I liken it to exactly what Shawn likened it to. It's like an old boxer coming back, getting your head beat in. It's like, look, you're not proving nothing. You're not endearing yourself to anybody. You're just going to get hurt, and you're not going to make it back to the heavyweight fight. You know, you're not going to get back to where you used to be 20 years ago. That type of a mentality. So there is kind of a halfway there that I think Kevin should be looking at. And if there's anybody running his camp or helping him with that, or certainly I'm always here to give the right advices, David, as you well know. You have to
Always
take a look. You have to take a look at the whole. Is this good for the brand? Is this good for my own marketing? Is this good for endearing myself? You know, listen, you're going to endear yourself to some fans from the old days, but there's also a new crop of fans. That's the only Kevin they know. And it's not going to be good if you're taking 12ths and 13ths at a circuit show, you know, trying to prove a point. So, you know, like I say, there's some good, there's some not so good in there. Hopefully he'll make the right decision. What I can say is this, furthering up on what you just talked about. You could have a long, illustrious career in the IFBB after your competing days are over. I think people like Shawn Ray, obviously, myself, are living testaments to this. You know, I can go down that list to a Vince Taylor or a Flex Wheeler, you know, many of these guys now that are out there in the world of bodybuilding, making good money, making appearances, you can make a lot of different businesses within this business that we have of bodybuilding. However, if you're not in the club, it doesn't really help your cause. I mean, he mentioned Lee Priest. I mean, you're looking at a Tony Freeman these days as somebody who's gone a different direction. Probably not the smartest play. Probably not going to.
Did Tony ever forward over that $300,000 check or whatever he said, $100,000 check?
You know what? Hasn't been any proof of that. He got a nice watch, you know, so far, and you know, again, you don't even see him around, obviously, in any way, shape, or form, even on that side of the tracks.
I don't think he's. You know, we haven't talked about the NSL in a while.
Nothing to talk about.
I saw a poster coming up that Tony's going to be guest posing. But I don't think he's, you know, it's a year removed now since the NSL started. I don't think that Tony's been on a professional stage. Tony hasn't been on a professional stage. Aaron Stern, although she wasn't brought on to compete, right. I think a lot of people would, hasn't been on a professional stage. Sarah LeBlanc's got a kid on the way, so congratulations to her, but she's not going to be competing anytime soon. So
No.
The good old NSL hasn't done so hot.
We haven't mentioned it because there really hasn't been. It's much to do about nothing. I mean, the average.
No.
They average a dozen people a show, which I've had more people at Thanksgiving dinner. So, I mean, it's not really helping their cause, you know, clearly. But to the main point, bottom line is this, David, as we've seen with other people, you are way better off trying to extend a career off the competition stage within this organization rather than you are outside in it. And it's purely a numbers thing. Listen, it's the biggest organization in the world. That means there's a lot more opportunities. There's lots more guest appearances. There's lots more, you know, people that you can connect with in terms of fan base, in terms of doing business, supplements, whatever. So, you know, to a guy like a Kevin or anybody else like that, Branch, I mean, I don't know how much time he's got left on the stage. He may have called it a day already or be close to it. You know, he's got years to me in this industry of just being a face and a name and a bodybuilding legend.
Well, and it serves as a good lesson to the younger pros as well. Be good to the fans, treat them with respect, smile, take pictures, because there's life after the competitive side of the sport. But we also see like how many guys. I mean, granted, it has a lot to do with how successful you were as a competitor during your days of competing. But we see a lot of popular guys from the 90s and stuff that aren't doing what Shawn and Kevin and Flex do. And you know, again, that goes back to their successes as bodybuilders. But just being good with the fans is not only the right the right thing to do as as an ambassador for the sport. But it's a good business move, and like I said, I think a lot of these younger guys can take cues from guys like Jay and Branch and some of the veterans as far as how do they handle themselves today to ensure that they can continue doing the business years down the road.
Well, quickly, we've got about 8 minutes, David, but the Olympia Europe show is this weekend as well. So we'll be in Brazil. That'll be going on over in Germany. Interesting. I mean, a lot of shows post-Olympia. It's other than Phil Heath, who obviously smartly has elected to not compete in anything after winning his 6th Olympia, which I agree with. It's pretty much the same cast of characters. I mean, this is like Pro Show 6.0 now at this point, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's a good lineup, and like we had discussed last week, it's a really good opportunity for the European fans to get out and see the top guys in the world. I'm not sure if Phil's going to be there as making a guest appearance, but I would think it's likely. But it is, it's rematch number 5. Or actually rematch number 4, but match number 5. You had the Olympia, you had the Arnold Spain, you had Kuwait, and you had Prague, where it's essentially all the same guys going back and forth. So it'll be interesting. I did hear that Ramy has been dealing with a stomach bug over the last couple days. Apparently, he was in India, had some bad food there, and he's been dealing with it. So I don't know that we're going to see Ramy on stage. Like I said, this is just what I had heard. I'm not going to confirm that one way or the other. I'm assuming he'll be there regardless of whether he can get up and compete for the fans and everything like that. But it's interesting because we have seen these guys flip-flop. The only guy that we haven't seen, squeak out a post-Olympia win is Shawn Rhoden. And, and I believe he's going to be there.
Which, by the way, isn't that the irony of all ironies? The guy who ends up taking second place has yet to win a post-show.
Yeah, it is very interesting because I think, he was a favorite going over into those shows just from where he was at the Olympia. But at the Olympia, we didn't see Ramy at his best both days. Right. And for as consistent as Dexter is, and he's always in great shape, we see him sometimes in just ridiculous shape. I mean, so like I said, Dexter has been, known as the benchmark for consistency and conditioning over all his years, but we still do see Dexter a little bit sharper at some shows than the other, and that can make the difference. So, as far as predictions for the show, predict a good show for the fans. Ruli's going to be there as well. You can kind of think it's going to be, Ramy, Rhoden, Dexter,
sure.
Bonac, Ruli, as far as your first call out guys. So it's going to be a repeat of what we've seen before. But again, even if the American fans or the global fans have seen this competition already and seen these comparisons, for the fans in Europe that get a chance to watch this, I mean, it's going to be a really cool thing. And the biggest event, competitor wise, as far as big names, the biggest event that they've had, in a while, because they have, it's not just a couple of the guys, it's, all of your guys that were in the top 6 or 7 in the Olympia, all on the stage minus Phil.
Yeah, listen, it's great bodybuilding, and for those fans, they get a real treat with that. And let's face it, some people just travel better than others. You wonder, we can speculate all day long why Rhoden, who would have been the Vegas, odds-on guy to have won something, if not the majority of these shows, is 0-4. And the answer is it's just simple. I mean, look at, like you said, some of those guys didn't hit their peak at the Olympia. He doesn't seem to travel well in terms of bringing his best onto a stage overseas. Again, some guys do, some guys don't. The fact that more of them haven't had to drop out because of travel considerations, to me, is pretty impressive on that. It's difficult for those who don't know. And I've been not to this degree because I have never done, 5 shows in a row, let alone after the Olympia. It's difficult. It's difficult to travel as is within the States, let alone overseas, eating different food, in and out of airports, just to travel itself. Your body's in a depleted state. So when all the conspiracy theorists come along and they like to joke around and, I'm sure it was some kind of a stomach bug or something like that type of thing. Look at, yeah, I mean, it's not that unusual for that to happen. I mean, it happens locally. You've been there, David, where you've gotten ready for a show and you get down to the wire and, you're fragile, man. I mean, your physique at that point is pretty much susceptible to anything. It's difficult not to get sick at that point.
Flying, I think the one thing that people really take for granted, when we talk about bodybuilding and the difference between having a good physique on stage and a great physique and everything that comes into play when you talk about being full and water retention and everything like that, people I don't think take into consideration the effect that flying has on you. Now, obviously, flying in 2016 is a very, very safe thing, and you're comfortable and whatever. But as far as how the body responds to it, and I've done a little bit of research. I'm not going to go all doctor mode here, but being in an airplane at 35,000 feet in a pressurized cabin going 650 miles an hour isn't like the best for your homeostasis, your body, and everybody responds differently to that. I know a lot of the guys will wear compression suits when they fly to help with circulation and water retention.
Yep.
Anybody who has, people who have blood clot issues, it's my understanding, are recommended not to fly because of circulation issues at that altitude and with pressurized cabins. And so there's a lot of little things that come into effect, and time zone changes. I mean, I've when I came back from Australia last year, I was messed up for almost 2 weeks, to the point where, and I don't like taking sleep medications or anything like that. I'm kind of anti, for as funny as it is, like being all about like bodybuilding supplements, I'm kind of like anti over the. I don't like Tylenol. I don't like any of that stuff. If I don't have to take it, I'll usually deal with it. But I had to go eventually and just get some ZQuil to help myself sleep. And that was one trip going from, the United States to Australia and back. So for these guys to be bouncing back and forth and doing all this stuff, I mean, sometimes a time zone change like that, if you guys haven't flown internationally, it's not like you get back and a day or two later,
no.
you're ready to go. I mean, that jet lag can take you a week or two to catch up on. And when you're talking about putting in intense training, your dieting and everything, the international travel has a lot more effect on these guys' physiques than I think people take into consideration.
Well, listen, food consideration. You can only bring so much food with you. I just did Kuwait 2 weeks ago. It was a 15-hour flight direct from here to Doha, and then another short flight from Doha to Kuwait. It's 15 hours, man. I mean, you've got to account. Listen, I'm not dieting for this show. I'm not in contest mode. So for me, it's a little bit easier. I can sit there and, they bring that meal over nice, and, that's all they do is feed you on these flights.
Yeah.
You can't do that there. You've got stuff packed, with ice packs. Ice packs don't last, 15, 24 hours. Tony Doherty, God bless him, my good friend from Australia, he's done the Australia to U.S. thing dozens of times, and it's 20-something hours of flying. I can't even imagine getting ready for a show. Then like you say,
Tony's just an intense guy. So I think
he's a nut. But he gets it done, and I tell you what, hats off to him for doing that. And he was eating clean all weekend, by the way. We were at Jim Lorimer's birthday party a couple weeks ago there, and we hung out the whole weekend smoking cigars and doing our thing. But he was eating clean the whole time. He's trimmed it down. He looks good. He feels good. But yeah, make no mistake. This stuff's no joke when it comes to travel. Just getting water considerations, just regular water, bottled when you get somewhere. Like you say, when you land, it's the day later, things like that. So all these things come into play. Real quick, Dave, we're running out of time, but another show this week in the Diana Cadeau Classic. She's been putting this on for a number of years now down in Florida, and has expanded it quite nicely. Classic Physique taking the stage there, and some breaking news in Classic Physique. We got a new contender in that lineup.
Yeah, Chris Bumstead. This guy kind of jumped on the scene in a major way. A Canadian kid. He's 21 or 22 years old. Young guy. He's got the perfect look. He's got the jawline, the hair, the physique. I mean, the guy looks like a built Ken doll. And he went to the North Americans this year, won the heavyweight class. Now, definitely not the biggest heavyweight that we saw at the show, or even not, and probably not as big as he needed to be at a heavyweight and other national level competitions. But the guy's physique is incredible. His legs are ridiculous. Like I said, he's got a great look to him. He decided to switch over to Classic Physique, which I didn't think was too big of a surprise, because for as good as Chris's physique is, and it is, believe me, for a 21 or 22-year-old, it is phenomenal, and he still has plenty of room to grow. He went out and said that he felt he needed to put on a ton of weight to be competitive as a bodybuilder in the IFBB, and just for his personal goals, that's not really the direction he wanted to head, so he's deciding to jump into Classic. Without comparing him side by side with the other guys, obviously it can be difficult. But if I'm just looking at physiques and judging where Chris could be at an Olympia, I think he's a top 3, top 5 guy. He's just got an incredible physique, and we're going to find out this weekend because he's competing against Darren Charles and Terrence Ruffin. It's a little bit of a smaller lineup, but definitely some really good quality. Terrence Ruffin, as we know, won Tampa. Darren Charles won everything else he entered.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
So Chris is going to have his hands full. He's going to find out right away how he fits in. But the thing with Chris is he's big and he's got the lines. So he's got a really good balance. You know, I look at guys like Arash Rabar, the guy who got the runner-up at the Olympia this year. And for as good as Arash is, I think Chris's upper body is every bit as good as Arash's, but his legs are better. So I think it was a good move for Chris Bumstead in the Classic. You know, as a hardcore bodybuilding fan, would I have liked to seen him slap on 30 or 40 pounds? Yes. At his age, is that feasible? Of course it is. You know, the amount that Chris could grow between now and 25 could be phenomenal. And but you know, at the end of the day, you got to do what's going to make you happy and where you want to be with your physique. And I think it's cool to see a 21-year-old too.
Sure.
You know, we talk so much, you know, guys turning pro, the 35, 40, and the Masters, and we just don't see a lot of these young pros anymore, obviously, because you have to be just incredibly genetically gifted to be able to turn pro at that age with the level of competition we see now. But it's gonna be a good show, and I'm excited. And I don't get like I'm excited to see this young new guy, but I'm excited to see Chris on stage. And you know, like I said, regardless of whether he decides to pursue the open bodybuilding division or do classic physique, I think he'll do really well. So.
All right. Well, we'll see how the rookie stacks up against the veterans down at the Diana Cadeau. We're out of time, David. That's going to wrap things up. We'll be back next week with a full report. Post-Brazil, this should be a real interesting weekend. I'll guarantee you I'm going to have some real good stories to be sure.
Don't let me down on the pictures.
No,
and
listen.
Please have your phone ready. If there is a Lee Priest Shawn Ray confrontation, this has to be video documented. So I want you to make sure
I will do so.
Phone's video function.
I got to be honest, bro. I'm less concerned with that, and I'm more concerned with the Branch Warren Lee Priest confrontation because you know, we all know Branch, so that's gonna do it. But I guarantee you, I promise you, I will get back with you guys over the weekend. We will have material to share on the boards, David. So I'm going to filter all this stuff through you, so you can post it up for our boys, and it will be on the boards, of course, all weekend long. That's going to wrap it up here for the last rep. And David Baye, I'm Bob Chick.